Okay, hear me out. Christmas? Kinda gay. No, really. It's a holiday built on sparkle, drama, found family, and elaborate costume changes. Mariah Carey literally defrosts for it. But beyond the memes and mistletoe, Christmas has a surprisingly queer backstory. I'm talking about centuries of gender-bending performances, saints with extremely intense friendship, and the whole holiday being revived by theatre gays. Yes, theatre gays. Today, we're unwrapping part 1 of the gloriously queer threads woven through one of the world's most mainstream traditions. So, grab your cocoa, straighten your halo or your crown, and let's ask the big question. How gay is Christmas? Really? Hello lovely people and happy holidays. I'm Jessica, my pronouns are she, her, and today I want to talk about where Christmas all began. Not the nativity, that's fine if you, we're just going further back than that. To the part they don't make small children do plays about. The ancient Roman festival of Saturnalia and how, spoiler alert, it's far more gay than you might think. Probably why 5-year-olds don't do plays about the Romans. Well, actually the Romans weren't, or that's a video for another time. Fair. Unless this is your first video of mine, you'll know it's pretty on brand for me to talk about how history is full of incredible LGBTQ+ feminists and disabled people whose existence and or identity has been erased. And also, neurodiversity means I'm really bad at shutting up about stuff. If you're new here and you like the sound of that, plus chats about chronic illness, lesbian parenting and vintage fashion, you should totally hit the subscribe button. It would be a lovely Saturnalia gift from you to me. In video part 2, we'll be looking more at medieval to modern queer Christmases and their relation to drag, but for now, Saturnalia. Many religions and cultures have a festival around the winter solstice. People come together in the depths of winter to mark the shortest day and brighten the dark days with lights. Saturnalia honoured the Roman god Saturn, and a lot of the festival's traditions are still associated with Christmas today. People would light torches, feast, play games, sing, and exchange gifts. If this sounds familiar, it's because a lot of festivals that we associate, at least in part, with Christianity today, have their origins in older pagan traditions, which I've talked about recently in my video about how Halloween became gay Christmas. However, unlike Halloween, we have a lot more writing from the time that Saturnalia was being celebrated about the rituals involved, meaning that we have significantly more evidence to point to and say, oh yeah, no, that was pretty gay. And the UK might be the only place where Saturnalia is still celebrated on a large scale in some form. Every year, a week or so before Christmas, Chester's streets are filled with the same sights, sounds and smells that have marked Saturnalia in the city since its days as the Roman city of Diva Vitrix. But before we jump into the gloriously queer traditions of Saturnalia, a quick modern reminder. The ancient Romans weren't the only ones causing chaos. The internet's doing a fair bit of that too. And protecting your connection is absolutely key. When you're online, you're exposed to data breaches, hacking attacks, snoopers, basically everything except a polite Roman offering you wine. One solution fights them all. Surfshark VPN, sponsors of this video. Surfshark lets you experience the web the way it was before advertising happened. No ads, no cookie pop-ups, no trackers following you all over like keen Saturnalia revelers. And Surfshark has a fabulous new treat, the email scam checker. It's built into their Chrome extension and Gmail, detects phishing and dodgy links, and it basically just stops you from clicking definitely not a trap.pdf. And in between researching ancient queer Romans and doing my holiday shopping, which let's be honest is mostly me panic browsing while the twins are asleep, I am reminded of something very important. I can use Surfshark on an unlimited number of devices. Plus, they now have 4,500 servers in 140 locations, which is more places than Saturn ever ruled. I mean, he wasn't real. Was he? Here's your chance to try it. Go to surfshark.com/Jessica or use code Jessica to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Or you can just scan the QR code on screen if typing is too hard. The Romans can have their chaos, but we don't want it on our computers. So, let us don our gay apparel and talk about Saturnalia and its queerness. Hi, sorry, excuse me. So funny story, for anyone who doesn't know this is nothing to do with Saturnalia, but, or Christmas really, or is it? I get chest infections every Christmas. It's like my thing. I do have a cute new mug though, for me to drink my lemsip from. Traditions of Saturnalia. Like other festivals held around the winter solstice, Saturnalia celebrated the promise of spring, and people decorated their homes with wreaths and branches. Kevin Butcher, professor of Roman history at the University of Warwick, wrote in 2017 that originating as a farmers' festival dedicated to Saturn, the Roman god of agriculture and the harvest, Saturnalia began on the 17th of December and lasted between 3 and 7 days. As with our Christmas celebrations, it was a period during which all work and business stopped, and was the most popular holiday of the year, with the poet Catullus calling it best of days. Whilst we do have records of how Saturnalia was celebrated, English Heritage notes that there's no writing that kind of describes the entire festival. They explained that a commemoration poem by a Roman writer called Publius, I actually have a Latin GCSE, surprising no one, but I should be able to pronounce Roman names. A commemoration poem by a Roman writer called Publius describes Saturnalia organised by Emperor Domitian, held at the amphitheatre in Rome. It began early in the day, with sweet pastries made with dates, plums, figs, apples and pears, scattered to people from a rope stretched over the amphitheatre. Those attending the celebration brought baskets of bread, luxurious food and lots of wine. Female gladiators fought in the arena, and in the evening, the crowd enthusiastically shouted their thanks to the emperor. Female gladiators weren't common, but they did exist, and are just one example of how usually rigid societal roles around gender and status were set aside during Saturnalia. Butcher adds that everyone in society had more freedom during this time. They were allowed to socialise together, and they would greet each other with the seasonal greeting, "Yo, Saturnalia." Yes, like, yo. It's worth pointing out that the ancient Romans had a lot of gods. Writing for volume 15 of New Histories in 2021, Hannah McCann explains that Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the sun god, Sol Invictus, or the unconquerable sun, was celebrated on the 25th of December. Saturnalia was a big deal and had a lasting impact. Nicole Bodrovich, a curational assistant in the antiques department at the J. Paul Getty Museum, wrote in 2020 that Saturnalia was celebrated well into late antiquity. With the rise of Christianity, the pagan holiday was removed from official calendars, but carried on as a popular secular holiday. Many of Saturnalia's traditions, which celebrate the hope of harvest and a bright future during the dark winter, were incorporated into celebrations of Christmas and the New Year. There is a lot of debate amongst historians about exactly when Saturnalia was replaced by Christmas as the main winter festival throughout Europe. Butcher believes that it's possible that the Emperor Constantine, who was from AD 307 to 337 AD or CE, had some influence, since before his conversion to Christianity, he was a keen devotee of the unconquered Sun, who is commonly depicted on his coins before this point. Even in Chester, where Saturnalia is still celebrated, Coleman and Long write that Dr. Caroline Pudney, a senior archaeologist lecturer at the University of Chester, says that the modern Saturnalia proceedings were not quite the same as the Roman ones, as Chester now celebrated in a way that combines the Roman festival with the vibrant tradition of the city's medieval parades and processions. Basically, all of these rituals build on top of each other in a way that's really fascinating, and whilst that means that understanding the exact origin of different traditions can be challenging, there's something very heartwarming about the fact that people have always come together to mark the middle of winter and celebrate that the sun would return. It's not that all of these celebrations are the same or that they mean the same things to everyone, but it's a time of year where we have needed to find meaning, and some of the ways that we've done that have been consistent. The queerness of Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a time when the strict hierarchical structures of Roman society were discarded, like purge, and it's a tradition that continued as the festival that people were celebrating changed. In a piece for The Guardian, Sarah Clegg, author of The Dead of Winter, The Demons, Witches and Ghosts of Christmas, explains that a practice that originated with the Roman festivals of Saturnalia about 2,000 years ago, when mock kings were elected by friends to issue ridiculous commands, which included everything from dancing naked to shouting insulting lies, to spread then to medieval Christmas celebrations. And by the early modern period, a Puritan pamphleter, he was a Puritan who gave out pamphlets, Puritan pamphlet. What a job title. He was called Philip Stubbs and he was a Puritan pamphleter, was complaining that the lords of misrule brought devilry, pride and whatnot to Christmas celebrations. Kind of the point. I know, pride in this instance isn't related to LGBTQ plus pride, but Saturnalia was very queer in many ways. And I don't only mean queer as in gay, but also in the political sense of rejecting traditional gender and sexual norms and challenging oppressive structures. The rules were set aside, the social order upturned. For example, in The Wild Holiday That Turned Ancient Rome Upside Down, Budrovich explains that in one ancient account, the god Saturn was featured describing the festival. Everywhere there's clapping and singing and playing games, and everyone, slave and free man, is held as good as his neighbour, he says. During the holiday week, a time of role reversal, enslaved people could attend banquets and were celebrated gifts and wine. The idea that everyone was worthy of respect and being treated equally is one that, as a society, we still seemed struggling to wrap our heads around today. Even if it was only for a brief period of time, it still was very radical for an ancient society. Budrovich continues, noting that instead of the formal and unwieldy toga, Romans of all ranks would put on a synthesis, a comfortable and colourful dinner dress that was normally reserved for private dinner parties, and everyone would wear the freedman's cap, a canonical, a cone felt hat, awarded to freed slaves to celebrate the liberty and free spirit of the holiday. Wow, it's one of those things that's nice and awful at the same time. And rigidly gendered clothing was another social expectation that Saturnalia gave people a level of freedom to disregard. Journalist Kimberly Kay interviewed anthropologist and bioarchaeologist Susan Lanigan for LGBTQ Nation in 2022, who explained, "It is no secret ancient Greece was super queer, but the Romans were a bit more prudish and often kept queer relationships in the taboo category. However, Saturnalia was all about emulating the social freedom integral to Greek culture. Hence, drag was openly encouraged. We have more than one record from the period describing men dressed as women, women dressed as men, masters of the house waiting on slaves, and an overabundance of wine and fruitcake in that order." Yes, I'm sorry, that word did have to be not said. We're all just here trying to please the monetization gods. And if you'd like to know more about links between people cross-dressing as part of Saturnalia celebrations and the Dame and other characters in drag in the Christmas pantomime, well then you're going to want to watch part 2 of this video series, coming very soon. The role reversal of Saturnalia gave people an opportunity to step outside their usual place in society, and eventually the festival became synonymous with hedonistic pleasure. It was a time where people implicitly acknowledged the inequalities present in their society, even poking fun at how arbitrary and silly those structures were. And then they put them right back in place the next day. I feel like LGBTQ+ folks watching this video might be able to relate to the feeling that society's rules are entirely made up and ridiculous? Just maybe? Heteronormativity, Saturnalia versus Christmas. Something that comes up every time my son asks me, why isn't it Mother Christmas? Although it's pretty clear that the origins of Christmas are a lot queerer than most of us were taught. Christmas in the UK today places a massive emphasis on the nuclear family. It's a time of year when many LGBTQ+ people can feel lonely or alienated because most of us don't really fit into those traditional family structures now, do we? And those feelings aren't new. In a blog post for Notches in 2015, Lauren Gutterman, author of Her Neighbour's Wife, A History of Lesbian Desire Within Marriage, describes The Lonely Season, an essay by Frank Golovich which appeared in One in 1957. Golovich wrote, "I would guess that for at least half the homosexuals in our society, Christmas is the loneliest time of the year." One magazine was published from 1953 through 1967 and is described as the USA's first gay magazine. The reason I care about how queer Saturnalia was is because I know that more than 60 years later, Christmas is still a really challenging time for many LGBTQ+ people. Yeah, it is for me. And that's because of traditional values that we're told are inherent to society, but are actually a relatively recent invention and a tool of heteronormativity. Heteronormativity is the very pervasive but untrue idea that everyone is straight by default, and cisnormativity is the idea that everyone is cisgender by default. Saturnalia accentuates how absurd it is that LGBTQ+ people are expected to hide our queerness or tone down parts of ourselves over Christmas in service of tradition, because we know that people who today would probably call themselves queer or trans celebrated Saturnalia, like the trans Roman emperor. No, you heard me right. There was a trans Roman emperor. Seriously. Emperor Elagabalus was born in present-day Syria and ruled from 218 to 222 CE, or AD, depending on who you want to annoy this Christmas. And there's been a lot of academic debate about her gender identity. In 2023, the North Hertfordshire Museum in the UK announced they were going to start using she, her pronouns for Elagabalus in their displays and referring to her as a trans woman. A modern day term, yes, but perhaps the one that best fits our current understanding of gender, and which, had it been in use at the time, may have worked for her. Writing for them in 2023, Samantha Rival explains that some historians believe that accounts about Elagabalus's gender falsely portray Elagabalus as effeminate and a sexual taboo breaker to provide justification for Elagabalus's assassination. But that could equally be a straightwashing of history to fit with this cis-heteronormative agenda. In an article for the Arts newspaper in 2023, journalist Gareth Harris, wow, I cannot speak whole sentences, oh god. In an article for the Arts newspaper in 2023, journalist Gareth Harris reports, "We try to be sensitive to identifying pronouns for people in the past, as we are for people in the present. It's only polite and respectful. We know that Elagabalus identified as a woman and was explicit about which pronouns to use, which shows that pronouns are not a new thing." Riedel continues that according to the writings of Cassius Dio, a contemporary of Elagabalus, she insisted on being called lady rather than lord, and repeatedly sought any doctor in Rome who could give her female genitals, without success. As the University of Birmingham noted in 2021, Elagabalus also married Heracles, a formerly enslaved charioteer, and apparently loved being called his wife or mistress. She reportedly wore makeup, although she did not shave her moustache, and in Herodotus' telling, had no desire to sin in secret, but appeared in public with eyes painted and cheeks rouged. I'm not trying to glorify ancient Rome or pretend that it was a perfect society where all queer people were safe to be themselves. No. But I do want safety and acceptance for queer people today. Queering Christmas. We can queer Christmas by centering found family and community and moving away from expectations about what our celebrations should look like. And there's no right way to do that. You get to pick how you want to briefly restructure society for, the period of Saturnalia. Yay. And what's important to you. It's actually far more traditional to celebrate by throwing societal expectations out of the window and prioritizing joy at this time of year. You could hold a queerness dinner with your friends and chosen family, instead of or in addition to celebrating with your family of origin, which may or may not be awkward. You could do a potluck style meal where everyone brings a dish. Might be a fun way to do this, so no one ends up having to do all the cooking. We should probably also share in the cleaning. Fodder and I actually like to have a traditional festive bake-off, which we've done with Jamie and Shaba for a couple of years, which is a lot of fun. You can watch that on our channel. We do get quite competitive, but in a really festive way. You could organise a clothes swap for your friends, where you bring along some clothes that you don't love anymore and see if they'll spark joy or gender euphoria for someone else, or just all dress up as each other for one night, just because. And if you can't physically meet up with people you love, why not plan an evening where you watch a Christmas film or do some crafting whilst you're hanging out on a video call? One of my favourite parts about digging into the queerness of Saturnalia was realising that all of our traditions are a cumulative, messy patchwork of older rituals blended together to create something new, so it's actually very Christmassy to start your own customs if you want to. And in the Saturnalia spirit of upending social hierarchies to create a more equal society, I'm going to shout out two organisations who are doing incredible work for LGBTQ+ young people in the UK. AKT is a charity who work with LGBTQ+ youth experiencing or at risk of homelessness, and their winter appeal explains they are currently experiencing an unprecedented high demand for emergency support. And I know that sounds like something that is every year, right? An unprecedented demand for support. Oh gosh, isn't that the same as last Christmas? Well, yes, yeah, it's kind of a thing that happens when the economy gets worse, and so does the public rhetoric against trans, queer and gender non-conforming people. And secondly, in a year that has been incredibly hard for young trans people, Trans Secret Santa UK is a community initiative raising funds to deliver gifts to trans and non-binary youth during the festive season. If you have some other suggestions, please post them in the comments down below. However you're spending the Christmas period, please remember to take care of yourself. I hope you will have a lovely festive period, whether you are celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Saturnalia, the winter solstice. I hope you get to spend time with people you love. I would love it if you could leave a comment and share a Christmas tradition your family has, or how you are queering your festive celebrations this year. And if you're spending the holidays surrounded by straight people and need a little bit of queer encouragement, you should check out my Ask Your Lesbian Mums playlist, where my wife Claudia and I answer your questions and offer advice and gentle pep talks. Whether this is your first video of mine or you watch every single thing I make as soon as it's published, thank you for watching and engaging with my videos this year. And sitting through my coughing. Now, I say this in lots of my videos, but I really want to take a moment to say a massive thank you to the wonderful people of the Kellgren-Fozard Club. Clubbies, which is what we call the members, support my work and to help make this little corner of the internet a lovely place to spend time. They also help me feel less stressed about things like being ill or having a surprisingly early maternity leave because my babies had to be in hospital. And they help to take the pressure off while still allowing me to make the content that you love. So if you want to join them in the KF Club, you will get access to very cool packs, like a whole playlist of behind the scenes videos which go back to even before my oldest child was born. You will also get a cute little image of my face next to your name when you leave a comment on a video. And those comments then rise up to the top in videos, as you will see in the comment section down below, and will be highlighted on my main channel page. A membership to the Kellgren-Fozard Club could be a lovely Saturnalia gift if you wanted to treat yourself. Go to surfshark.com/Jessica or use code Jessica to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Mwah! Yo Saturnalia! Bye friends. This dress is not in the least bit Roman, but it is sparkly. So we love her.